In this video, we talk about one of the single most important letters from the Social Security Administration that you should never ignore, yet a lot of people do. Coming up next on Holy Schmidt.
Holy Schmidt!
Let's face it, sometimes in life we get busy and we ignore things that we shouldn't ignore, only to find out later that they were pretty important. A letter from your bank, for example, that says that your mortgage was 3 weeks late, but you knew that you sent it in 3 weeks earlier, therefore it was probably just being processed. The next week you find that payment in the drawer, and the net result is that your credit takes a ding and you have a $75 late fee. As an example, we routinely get emails and letters from service providers like banks, insurance companies, even the government, and they all have one thing in common. They contain a form letter, and our mind automatically assumes that form letter is informing us of something that doesn't really apply to us. It's a change of a term in your bank agreement that is there because the law requires it, as an example. And 99% of the time, for most people, you would probably be right. But occasionally, there's that letter that is really important, but it looks like all of the other letters that went unopened or just ignored. There's one letter from the Social Security Administration that you cannot ignore because it only goes from bad to worse. If you put it off, ignore it, put it in a drawer, read it, and don't really fully understand it. And that's a letter of overpayment. Let me explain. A letter of overpayment means simply that they paid you too much. Now, the reason that people ignore it is because people look at that letter and think my payment hasn't changed in years outside of the annual cost of living adjustment. How can this apply to me? Maybe it's another one of those form letters that I get all of the time. But this one is different. And the unsettling part is that that letter can arrive months or even years later when you've had months or years of overpayment, and now you need to give it back. And by the way, most of the time the person receiving that letter hasn't done anything wrong. Their overpayment might have been 10% more or $100 more. They can't see it. But when you add up month after month after month of overpayment, it becomes a really big number, and the Social Security Administration is very slow to catch its own errors. And the fact is, the SSA has underinvested in its own infrastructure, and so a lot of these calculations still get done by hand, and that's where the errors occur. It can also come from a change in your own situation, and you weren't aware that you needed to do something. A common one for this audience is that you claimed Social Security early. You might have been unemployed at the time, and then you went back to work, and now you have Social Security coming in, which you feel like you're entitled to because you're over age 62, and you have your work income coming in. And now you're earning above the limit. In 2026, that limit is $24,480. Anything above that, you have to give part of the payment back to the SSA. But they don't catch it the day after you cross the limit. They catch it months or even years later. Other changes include a spouse passing away, which changes the Social Security payment household limit. And it's worth knowing who gets hit the hardest. Most overpayments come from either the SSDI program, Social Security Disability Insurance, or SSI, Supplemental Security Income. This is where the income and living arrangement rules are complicated and they're easy to get tripped up on. So if you get one of these letters in the mail, understand two things. The first is you're probably not being singled out. It's unlikely that you're being singled out. And the second is that you probably didn't do anything wrong. You probably did not even know that you were being overpaid. But what you do next is really important. Now, before we talk about what your options are, you need to know what's at stake, meaning how much can they take out of your Social Security payment. And this is complicated because the rule has changed 4 times in the last 2 years. For decades, the rule was blunt. The Social Security Administration would withhold 100% of your Social Security payment until the overpayment was paid back. For someone whose Social Security payment was most or all of their income, that meant that their livelihood dropped to zero in a very short period of time, overnight. In March of 2024, after news that people were losing their homes, the SSA put a cap of up to 10% or 60 months. In March of 2025, it was reversed again, and it went back to 100%, and that stayed in place for 2 months. April of 2025, it was reduced to 50% of the Social Security payment, and that's where it stands today. To put this in real terms, if your Social Security monthly payment was $2,000, you'd have to give back $1,000 until the debt was repaid. Two things work in your favor. If your notice came before April 2025, then it's still capped at 10%. And if this is a notice regarding SSI, that's also capped at 10%. Also, if it turns out you do owe the money, the SSA will allow you to arrange a payment plan out over 60 months. So you do have some options here. Now, let's talk about the letter itself. There are two clocks, a 30-day clock and a 60-day clock, and it's vital that you understand the difference. The notice itself has three things: the amount they think you were overpaid, the rate which they're going to expect to be repaid back, and what you can do about it. Those details tell you exactly what you're dealing with and how much time you have to respond. The window you have is 30 days. If you miss that 30-day window, the SSA will implement its default, which is 50% of your monthly payment. That's 50% of your retirement, survivor, or disability check, or 10% of your SSI payment, until the balance is repaid. The second number is 60 days. You have 60 days to appeal the actual amount itself, without a good reason anyway, so don't miss that 60-day window. And just for good form, the Social Security Administration assumes that you received the notice within 5 days of mailing, so the clock starts 5 days after the date of the letter. Now notice the difference in timing: 30 days before they take money from your Social Security payment and 60 days to appeal. In practical terms, you should appeal within 30 days. And there's one trap that catches people out, and that is, if I ignore it, it's going to go away. A letter like that, whether it's from the government or from some other provider, rarely ends well when you just ignore it. Things get progressively worse. And one other point that trips people up: responding to the letter isn't the same thing as agreeing to the letter. Pick up the phone call and make the call. Better yet, respond in writing and make a call, because responding isn't agreement. It just allows you to catalog that you are in process of disputing this or managing it in some way. Very important. It simply protects your rights and forces the agency to take a second look before they act on the information that they have. Use your online account or go to a local Social Security office, but you need to respond. And one practical tip: start early. The SSA doesn't give you credit for trying to call them or standing in a line and then walking away. They only give you credit for the actual contact. The point where you have an interaction with them is the beginning of the challenge. Gang, if you're doing your finances with spreadsheets, you're doing them the old-fashioned way. A lot of people will use spreadsheets to manage their finances only to find out that they made a mistake in a cell and the entire spreadsheet doesn't work. And the other spreadsheets that relied on that spreadsheet also don't work. Now, on this channel, we have 3 affiliate relationships. One is Bolden Personal Financial Planning Software. That's the personal financial planning software that I personally use. Bolden lets you manage your finances, set up what-if scenarios, and direct your finances instead of your finances directing you. If you'd like to try Bolden free for 2 weeks, simply use our affiliate code. Go to go.bolden.com/Schmidt, and you will get 2 weeks for free. After that, if you decide to keep it, it's just $12 a month. Now, once you decide to contact them, you have 3 options. You can seek an appeal, you can seek a waiver, or you can seek a lower rate. Let me explain. Option 1 is an appeal. The agency calls it reconsideration, basically filed on Form SSA-51. This is your move if you think the overpayment is simply wrong, the amount is off, or wasn't your fault at all. You have 60 days from getting the notice to file it. And if your appeal is denied, you can file an appeal to the appeal with an administrative law judge, and beyond that, an appeals counsel. File on time and your payments can continue at the current level while this plays out. The second is to ask for a waiver. Now here, you're not saying that they're wrong. You're agreeing with them, but you're asking them to waive it anyway. To win this, you generally need to show 2 things. 1, that it wasn't your fault, you didn't cause it. And 2, to comply, it would cause you hardship, significant hardship. You request a waiver using Form SSA 632. It asks for details on your income, your expenses, and your assets, because that's how the agency judges hardship. There's a helpful shortcut here. If the amount is less than $2,000, then this can be done on the phone. 3 words do a lot here. Who's at fault? And if the agency was the one that caused the problem and you had no way of knowing that they caused the problem, that significantly increases your chance of winning. Option 3 is to lower your rate. Let's assume that you don't qualify for a waiver, but 50% would put you in financial hardship. You can ask them to withhold less. Fill out Form SSA-632, a request to change the overpayment recovery rate. And by the way, there's no income test on this third option. You just need to show that 50% is too much and you can't cover your basic expenses. The agency can agree to any amount, even as little as a few dollars a month in many cases. Whatever you choose, bring documentation, bank statements, your rent or mortgage, utility bills, medical costs, etc. A waiver or rate reduction request backed by paperwork is far stronger than one that rests on your word alone. And file within that 30-day window so your benefits keep flowing during the review. Now there's a second point here, and I need to mention it simply because a lot of times, today anyway, these notices are a scam. They're not real. Overpayment fears are a tool for scammers, and they try to convince the target they need to move very quickly because they're out of time. Government imposter scams are not a small problem. In a recent year, there were over 300,000 imposter scams, and Social Security overpayment is one of their favorite. A scammer's entire game, by the way, is urgency, and knowing the 30 and 60-day rule is how you can defeat a scammer. First, genuine overpayment notices come by mail. You don't get a text, you don't get a phone call, you don't get an email. It comes by mail. Second, the agency won't threaten you with an arrest or jail time over an overpayment. So if someone says that you were overpaid and you need to pay now, and use a gift card to make the payment, that's certainly a sign of fraud. Hang up the phone. If you want to know whether a real notice exists or not, and you have a letter, then use the phone number on the letter. If not, check your My Social Security online. And if you already handed somebody information who turned out to be a scammer, you need to act fast. Call the SSA, contact your bank, and make sure that everybody knows that you've just been scammed. Finally, let's talk about where this may be headed in the future, because Congress has taken notice of this, particularly when people are losing their homes over it. The core complaint is the timing, people getting billed for the agency's mistakes years, sometimes decades later. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle have introduced bills to limit the time the SSA can go back and recover. And the scrutiny, by the way, didn't come out of nowhere. Investigative reporting has shown that people get 5- and 6-figure bills sometimes caused by mistakes at the SSA. In the Senate, there's a bill called the Social Security Overpayment Relief Act, which limits the time that they can go back to 10 years. Still a long time. In the House, there's a bill that limits this to 3 years. And the reasoning is the same whether it's the Senate or the House, and that is, if the SSA made the mistake, you shouldn't bear the burden, or at least a large part of the burden, of fixing it. But as of today, these are proposals, they're not bills, so understand the 30 and 60-day limits because they are really important. If you like this video, check out that video. Your Social Security payment isn't guaranteed. Also, don't forget to check out Bolden for 2 weeks free. Go to go.bolden.com/Schmidt, and you can try Bolden free for 2 weeks. After that, it's just $12 a month paid annually if you decide to keep it. This is Jeff Schmidt, and I will see you in that video right there.